Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host, your friend for the Leaders of Heart podcast. Today, I have again, I think this is the first time in almost 150 episode I have a tripeat. My wonderful friend, my brother in arms, Coach Randy Brown. This is part three. First part, he has a phenomenal story. We did about his background. He's a professional basketball college coach and all that. We talked about his background, his love of the game. In episode one, episode two, we talked about, when tragedy hit with the passing of his two young daughters at the same age due to the same disease, but a few years apart. That led him to depression and suicidal almost. He made some bad choices, and that ended up with him ending up in jail. So we talked about that part, especially what it was like being in jail and all that part too. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it. That's going to be phenomenal. And part three, this is going to be about him. It's going to be covering today is going to be how we bounce back, just like, as he says in his book, Bouncing Forward. So about how was it like getting back on his feet? How was it to get a job right after prison, and his path from there to now, and all the wonderful, impact is having on the world right now. So this is what we're going to be covering here today. So this is going to be something very wonderful. Just like Coach, I love basketball. This is, as I told him earlier, this is game three, Coach. You ready? We might go all the way to game seven if that continues. So, Coach, brother, welcome again for part three.
Thanks, Payman. Man, this has really been something special, and you're not only a fine podcaster, but you have a real heart for people, and I know that everybody that knows you would agree with that, and I really appreciate that. I've had a blast. Sometimes when you do a podcast, you just do a podcast, but this has been far and away beyond that. So I appreciate it, man.
You're welcome. I love to. My podcast is a platform to bring in heart-centered entrepreneurs who are making an impact in whatever way possible. And when I heard your story, I said, man, I gotta get this person, this gentleman on the podcast. And right from the get-go, I knew that, hey, throw the script off the window and just have a normal conversation with him, because this is what it's all about. Until there's no script, we're just gonna keep flowing, keep jamming, just like last time.
That's the best. Yeah.
If you guys want to hear the first two episodes, highly recommend go, because he has a phenomenal story worthy of a book, documentary, podcast, movies, whatever you want to call it. This guy is, one thing I always keep on saying is that, and I learned as a lesson, is that we all go through our fair share of challenges, dark times, crap, tragedies. Sure, at the time they hurt a lot, but if you look at it from a higher perspective, these are lessons for us to grow, to become the best version of us, to become the person we're meant to be. And then when we get there, these dark times, they become our story. We all have a story, and that story becomes our gift. And our gift, it then becomes a responsibility, a duty for us, not to keep it selfishly for us, but to share it with the world.
Right.
So we can all benefit from it. And one of the major lessons I learned from my spiritual awakening with past years is that one of the main reasons we are here is to learn, to overcome challenges, learn lessons, and then share those lessons with the world so that we can all benefit from it. So yeah, this is a beautiful conversation I've been having over the past few weeks with Randy. This is part three, game three, in basketball terms. So Coach, let's kick off game three. Ready?
Let's roll. I'm
All
ready.
right. Okay. So for game three, the last thing we talked about was you changing your life as a result of a pivotal conversation you had with a wonderful lady in that room in prison. You said she broke you down because she knew how to really push your buttons. Let's start from here. If we can go back to that moment, she said, from now on, you will not use the word coach. And your whole identity, your essence for your life was built upon that word. So tell us about how did that conversation, as hard and as terrible as it might have been at the time, how did you internalize it, accept it, and started to embrace it so they can move on forward from that conversation onward?
it might sound strange, but I accepted it. As bad as I fought her that day, after a day or two, I
Mhm.
mean, I let it just sink in, and I learned to accept it because I knew why she did it.
You had to
She
swallow.
just didn't.
You
She
had to
just
learn.
didn't.
You had to learn to swallow your pride and just say, maybe she's right. Let me
Yeah,
try a different path.
right. And she was doing me a favor, and I took it as punishment. And the favor was, if I can get this guy, it wasn't about never saying coach again. What it was about was learning that if I'm going to move forward, I'm not going to move forward as a college coach in the limelight every time you come out and play in front of 15,000 people. That's not going to be my existence. I'm going back to a family. I'm going back to responsibilities. I had to reinvent myself because I'm not going back to the job that I had done my whole life. That's what she was doing for me. And the test, and believe me, they test you. The test was, how's he going to deal with this? How's he going to handle this?
Sure.
And I think when she saw me so broken down, I mean, like I told you in the second episode, I mean, for an hour, I mean, I couldn't stop. I was shaking like you do when you're in one of those deep cries, and I couldn't stop shaking. She kept saying, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, but you got to let me go. I got a lot of stuff I got to get out here. If you can allow me just to." And she stayed in that room, and it was amazing. But when I understood why she did that, it made total sense.
At that
And
moment, sorry, coach, at that moment when she was saying that and getting all the juice out of you, did you have, as an ego reflex, any urges to just
oh
grab
yeah,
her and push her and hit her?
yeah,
Of course, you didn't
yeah,
do it, but I'm sure this is a
yeah,
normal, reflex that all of us, and when we put in that moment, we'll say, listen, I want to destroy that person. Did you have those dark
yeah.
thoughts at some point?
I did. Emotions were so high that day
Mm,
that I remember when she told me that about not using coach anymore. I remember pausing, and I thought my head was going to pop off. It got so warm so instantly. My face reddened, and then I got angry, and I stood up and took a big step towards her. Now think about the environment I'm in. I mean,
was
that's
there
not.
anyone else in the room in case
Oh yes,
to
yes. It
intervene as
was it was
security?
our process group. It was about
Okay.
6 or 7 of us. Yes,
Okay, good.
but it just happened to be my day, and she
Mm,
had it all planned out. I walked in very unassuming, but little did I know that it was kind of my day, and she did that. She would pick certain days where she would ask questions of one of those in the room that had just enough leeway in it to be construed as something that you did that you shouldn't have done. And then you start to get defensive. And after being defensive, people get angry. And I stood up and I took a step, which was really an unwise thing to do in that environment. And I stopped because I knew I certainly couldn't do that, wouldn't do that. But it was a reaction just to show how angry it was and how much it hurt me, is really what it was. And she saw it, and boy, then she had me. And and I remember, at that point, I sat back down, and it would have been a time for her to back off me, but she didn't. Then she heaped it on, you know, and then and then I stayed in my chair, but oh, was I mad. And
describe
I
her
kept
physically.
saying,
Describe her physically. Was she small, big, thin, tall, imposing? How
um,
was she physically?
she was probably a little bit taller than average, and medium sized woman.
5'5", 5'6"?
Yeah, something. Yeah, maybe a little bit taller, but
Okay.
um, yeah, she was testing me, and the follow up conversations were. Oh, what I was saying was, she poured it on. She poured it on. She's just like trying to bury me, and because she knew it was for my good. Isn't that amazing? The
Sure.
things I was telling somebody yesterday, Payman, this has always intrigued me. When you're at the doctor's office and a mother brings in a baby, let's say they're 6 months old, right? And they need their, those natal shots that they give them. And here's all this child knows is how much they depend on their mom and how much they don't even know love yet. I suppose they do internally, but okay, that's all they know, right? And all of a sudden here comes Doc with this big, apparatus with a needle on it that's sharp and hurts like heck. And they go off and scream that blood curdling scream. And then they look at mom while they're screaming. And how conflicting is that? Because they're getting this terrible pain and they don't know what it is. They can't quantify pain at that point. They just know it hurts. And they look at mom, the one who takes care of them every single day, right? And says, you can just see the look on her face like, why would you allow this to happen? Would you please help me and get this guy away from me?
I hate you, Mom.
Yes. And mom's thinking, even though it hurts and even though, you're extremely uncomfortable, this is being done for your good. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I've always thought about that because really that's kind of what happens in life. People, parents talk to their kids about their behavior and they make them uncomfortable because they know that, maybe putting a tie on, going to church makes a kid uncomfortable, but there's a reason that they do that. Okay. There's a reason that parents do a lot of things that make kids uncomfortable. And in the end, almost invariably, you come back later in your life and you go, I know why my folks did that now. Mm-hmm. Right. It was for my good. I didn't see it at the moment. I mean, I went crazy at the moment, right? I started just being a rebellious teenager or whatever and lashed out at my parents. But now I look back and what do we do then? With our children, we repeat. We simply repeat.
One question now, taking the same metaphor. When you were in that room with that lady trying to really rub it in you and trying to get you all riled up, you said the baby in that doctor's office looking at her mom, at his mom or her mom. But was there anyone that you were looking to play the role of the mom, whether it was some kind of admin or someone to just please stop the hurting, look for someone to just put an end to that, maybe to say, okay, now next?
No, there wasn't. The support was absent.
Okay.
Because your fellow colleagues or inmates, colleagues, they're not going to do anything because it was my day. Okay. I'm quite sure though, I was screaming for my mom internally somewhere because I was that vulnerable. I mean, it was at a raw level, completely raw level.
What were the other inmates? Were they sitting around you or was it in the room just you and that lady when she was
Well, it's a 90-minute session. So I was bent over and just heaving and crying when that session got over. So she dismissed them, but she stayed in the room. So it was her, Dr. Frazier, and I for an extra hour beyond that, just the two of us. Yeah. So, yeah, I would have loved some comfort and support, but it was better that I didn't. I just had to go through that. I had to go through it because I had to learn. And I did, like I said earlier, it took me a couple of days before it came really crystal clear as to why she did that. Then it made sense. And I told you that was the 6-month mark that I had been in prison for 6 months. And that's the day that I completely turned myself over to this program and these doctors and said, I want to come out of here the best. I want to be the best me in terms of the way I think, how I value people, what I do when there's conflict and there's a healthy thing and an improper choice. All those I have to learn, and I want to learn all those things. So what a crucial, not just it wasn't just a crucial thing in treatment. It was a huge part of my life. What happened there, those couple days were as important as any couple days in my life. And I owe her just a tremendous amount. We talked right before I left, and she had some really heartfelt things to say, and I alluded to it last time. Just the types of things that they have kind of a distance that they need to keep emotionally and things with inmates. But I mean, I spoke from my heart, and I thought she did too. And she said she definitely said to keep in touch because she wanted to see. And I'm sure that the rate of reoffending is pretty high, and I'm sure she doesn't hope that for anybody. But I'm sure she was a little bit maybe extra interested in how I was going to react when I got home. And I'll tell you, it was tough. It was tough. It was tougher than I thought it was going to be, but it's what I had to do.
Sure.
Probation isn't an enjoyable thing.
But tell us about probation. What exactly probation entails? Are there certain things that you're allowed to do, certain places you're not allowed to go or do? So tell us about all those limitations and restrictions.
So, when I got back, I met with my PO, with my
What's a
parole
PO?
officer.
Okay. Did you have to report to the police station every once in a while, or like in the movies?
He was actually no, because this was, I was a federal case, so I had to go to about an hour south of where I lived to Des Moines and go to the federal building, and then he was there, and I had to go. I mean, he had me on a schedule. It wasn't every week, but for a while it was every week, and then it kind of lessened. But he gave me the ground rules in no uncertain terms, and what you can do and what you can't do. Can
you share some of those with us?
Excuse me?
Can you share some of the can and cannot do with us?
Oh, sure. Now, there were places I couldn't be, like you couldn't go to the mall and loiter.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Type of thing.
But you could go for shopping.
You could, but the restrictions were so heavy when I got back. I remember them being concerned about me going to church, of all things.
Why?
And I said, you got to be kidding me. Well, their thing is the really difficult thing for me. I understand why they do it, but I just think it's kind of ludicrous. They put everybody in the same boat. No matter your charge or the severity, let's say, of your charge. Now, I had to learn that I broke the law for for my own needs, and I created victims, and that was enough for me to be the same as everybody else. So it wasn't like, well, you did this, but you only did this, and it wasn't that. And so what they do is they come up with blanket restrictions for everybody that's in that realm of all of those charges. And I'm like, really, church? I'll tell you, there was times aggravating wasn't the word. I don't know. I was so frustrated. And I remember one time in a session, I had to attend what they call treatment sessions. After getting back from 635 days of treatment, 4 hours a day, I had to go to a 3-hour treatment session every Saturday for 3 years.
Wow.
And it was 1/10 of what I got at Butner in terms of the quality of the treatment. But I had to be there, and I had to comply, and I had to do everything that they wanted me to do. And, that was tough, but I had to do it, and
what if you were sick someday? You still have to go there?
Don't get sick on Saturday.
You don't. Okay. Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, I just, I was kind of paranoid. I was like, I did a great job at Butner. I got an A+ grade coming out of there. And the last thing I want to do is start to slide and make
Sure.
them think like I'm not serious about this.
Mhm.
So I had to prove to him that I was. But because offenders are pretty much disliked or maybe hated by the community as in general, it was difficult to attend places where there were minors present. So where is that? Well, that's everywhere.
Sure.
And it was in church. So I actually had to do paperwork and have some people there that were willing to put their name on a line to say, yes, I will be responsible for his whereabouts when he's in our church on church property. Now
Wow.
that one hit me sideways. Well, I just couldn't. First of all, they took my Bible and wouldn't let me take it into prison, right? Now I get out and I can't go to church, and I'm like, I can't win, man. I mean, come on.
It's a complete opposite of what you see in the movies. In the movies, you say when you get in your cell, you have only one Bible in each cell. That's what at least what
Yeah,
they portray. But now they took yours.
they took mine.
Wow.
They said you can go to the chapel and get one. I'm like, it took me about 8 months to get a Bible
Wow.
because
And
there's
were
a
you
lot of demand for them.
and,
And man, I would go in and I would talk to the guy in charge every day, and I'd say,
and were you at the time a devout Christian, devout religious at the
yeah,
time?
oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And but I found my way to the chapel and met a wonderful pastor, and he did Bible study on Wednesday night. And boy, did I look forward to Wednesday night. Vernon Hedge was his name, and he led. I mean, it's just a way to get out of the reality that you don't want to think about every day 24/7. All of a sudden you walk in the chapel and there's a pastor, and he had such a great way about him, just a gentle way about him, but yet he knew what we faced later in after getting out and things. So he's very realistic, but he was a great teacher. And I remember just escaping for that hour or maybe hour and a half when I was in the chapel, because we were talking about God things. We were talking about making the right decisions. We were talking about valuing other people. And so it was sort of a faith-based reiteration of what I had been hearing all day in the treatment, up in our unit. So that was awesome. And eventually I got a Bible and I was happy. And I don't know about you, but I'm an underliner and a writer and
Oh
put a
yes.
star here. And I mean, my books are crazy.
Same here.
There's hardly any words left. So I tore into that thing unbelievably. And then we would get 3 or 4 guys together and try to get into a room and close the door in the early evening, which was not allowed. And we got busted a time or two, but I mean, come on, it's Bible study. We're not trying to rob a bank or something, right? I mean, we are trying to get
That's
better.
what they were thinking, yeah.
We would just kid about it, and go, come on.
So one
They're trying to
question
tell us
now.
we can't do something.
One question now. So before going to jail, were you also that devout of a religious man, or your faith increased tremendously while you were in jail?
It did. It did because of 2 things. Number one, for 6.5 years, I was leading this secret life that I knew was totally against my faith, my God, my morals, yet I was doing it, right? Which sounds kind of hypocritical. And what I did on purpose to allow myself to do this is I basically took God and put him over in a closet, thinking if I do that, he's not going to be able to, which was stupid because I know he's all seeing, all knowing, all giving, right? But in my mind, I justified that, and I slid him over here, which means when I went to church with my family that whole time, I was there physically, but I really wasn't there mentally. And so I was really dried up in my spirit. So when I got there, and all of the environment about where I was, and it all made me come back and reach, and really ask for repentance and forgiveness, and say, you know, God, I want to get to know you again. You know, I've done these things and I've lived this life, and I've really, really avoided you. And I met some brothers that were really, really into their faith too. And now they came in as Christians, and so we united, and we did a lot of things together, and that was unbelievable. What's even better is we had some non-believers who had never been to church, who didn't grow up in a home where any kind of religion was uttered. I mean, and it was totally new to them. Like, why do you guys go to church? You know, questions like that. I mean, really basic questions, had no idea. And they learned and they learned, and then eventually they gave their life to Christ. And I'll tell you, those were great moments. Unfortunately, in our world, we make fun of those that they always talk about, well, did you find God in prison, right? And that's always a big joke in our society. But it was no joke to me, because I saw it happen from 0 to 100. I saw it happen, and I could only hope that when those guys left, they continued, you know, with their faith, and attended church, hopefully, and got into men's study groups and things like that. So yeah, it happens. Yeah, no question, it happens. Now there's
Wonderful.
people who fake it too, just to get extra time in the chapel and do whatever. You got all kinds, but I can tell genuine when I see it. And it was pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never heard anybody speak in tongues.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It happened first time. I was like, what's happening to this guy? This is crazy. This guy's he's going to go nuts. And he's uttering all this stuff out of his mouth. I'd always heard about speaking in tongues, but never witnessed it. And when I did, I was blown away that someone could be so moved by the Spirit to do that.
Absolutely. Was this chapel, this church, within the premises of the prison, or was it a different location?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You bet.
Wow. Okay. So now let's go back to, you said you had some tough rules to follow. Tell us more about the rules, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. You mentioned that you were not able to go to any place which had minors. So how did you were you able to do your day-to-day life? Like, for example, you had to go to the mall or do your grocery shopping, or just go for a walk on a day, just want to get some fresh air.
Yeah. Well, it started out extremely suffocating. And I just learned that if I don't need to go to the mall, I'm not going to the mall. I just, I found reasons to have somebody else get what I needed, or you learn to adapt. You have to. Now, to go out for a walk was fine. To drive your car on the street was fine. But when there were settings where minors were present, which is almost every setting, you just really had to you had to be aware. I just always let people know what I was doing, where I was going. Hey, I'm going to run down to the gym. I'm going to run over here and watch the choir, or whatever the case may be. Now, get this: I've got 2 kids in high school, and they're both involved in choir, and then my other daughter was in athletics. So, I'm like, well, you can't keep me from participating in those. No, but I had to do a mountain of paperwork. Anybody I came in contact with as an adult had to fill out paperwork. So let's say I was taking my youngest daughter to a birthday party. Then I had to have paperwork filled out in advance by the father or the mother and father who was hosting this birthday party, whose child was a friend of my daughter. Okay.
Oh,
I mean, very specific. And I would go in when I met with my PO payment with mountains of paperwork.
yeah.
He said, "What's all that?" I said, "It's all the people that I've been in contact with the last month." He says, "You got to be kidding me." So, contacting other schools where my daughter was going to play. These
And
are
then, sorry,
people that,
wait. And then when you brought these, sorry, and when you brought this list of papers to your officer, and then they would follow up and
yeah.
call these people to check, or
Oh yeah, it was his discretion. I I heard from a lot of people that said, "Yeah, I got a phone call from your guy, your PO or whatever." Yeah, they were always checking on you.
did you have any
And
tracking?
we had a good relationship.
Good. Did you have any tracking
No,
devices
I
on you,
mean,
like a bracelet or an ankle or anything?
no.
Okay,
Nope,
good.
nope. Oh, they did plenty of checking. What was difficult was when she played outside of our school. So let's say they had a road game. They played at another school. Then
Yeah.
I'd have to contact the administration of
Oh,
the other
wow.
school and get everything signed. Well, they didn't know me, so a lot of times they're like, "No, I don't know. We've decided not to grant your." You talk about making me angry.
Sure, yeah.
And they wouldn't grant it, so I couldn't go. That only happened on a couple occasions, but
Not to
man, they took
mention,
2 games from me that
not to mention being absolutely humiliated as well as as a person, you know?
absolutely, yeah, yeah. Well, and it all was, but what I had learned, we talked about the language of responsibility before, but see, what I had learned was it's not punishment, it's just what the rules are in the aftermath of someone who has committed a crime and had to go to prison and pay for it. And so I had learned that, and I had changed the way I thought and spoke and internalized things. So I wouldn't say I was 100% okay with it, but I understood why those people didn't want me in their school. I just understood they were doing it
Sure.
for from a liability, from a safety standpoint. Not that I would harm anyone, but in our world, once we do something once, we're kind of held to that standard. Like, well, we don't trust them because they did it once, right? And
And on the other
so,
hand, everybody
and I
deserves a
got
second
it.
chance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think when you're believe me, and I've tried to see this payment from every angle. I never used to do that. And when I got to this point, I'm like, let's look at this from every angle. And then it usually made sense,
Sure.
that even though I was the one that was, hurt by it, it usually made sense, because if you're a principal, you're in charge of, you know, 114 kids, flat flat out from beginning to end. You're responsible for their safety. So that would sometimes their decision was easy, and even though I didn't agree with it, I understood.
Sure.
Had I not gone through that treatment and changed the way I thought and spoke, I totally wouldn't have understood it, and I would have been so angry and defensive, and that it would have been a bad scene. So
Sure.
that's just another one of the ways that those people helped me out, is be able to
Coup-
hit the streets when I got back and understand why
Couple
these
of
things were
questions that
happening.
came. Couple of questions came to mind. So, for example, when you said whenever you were trying to host an event or go to a school where you had to make the organizers fill some paperwork. Can you tell us what kind of questions they had other than their name and information? What kind of question was? Do you remember that was on those forms document that they had to fill? Just a couple of them to that.
You know, yeah, there was some pretty, it wasn't really questions. It was, well, the questions were for me. Okay.
Okay.
Who's going to accompany you to the game? Do you plan on meeting with the administrator signed on this form as soon as you get to the location? Things like that. Who will you be with? And I always went with my wife to the game, so that one was easy. Yeah, and it's just, there was some other verbiage, but not real. Sometimes they said you can't use the restrooms.
What? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I didn't know
Oh
until I
yeah.
got there on few occasions. I said, geez, Okay. And I'm thinking, of course, internal, I'm thinking, geez, I wish I would have known that before I got here, type of thing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you know, you got to take those things in stride. Listen, I wouldn't be in that situation had I not put myself in that
Sure.
situation because of poor choices I made.
Totally.
That was like the all-time truth serum of,
The
hey,
bottom
if you
line.
ever
Yeah.
wonder about why something's not going your way, it's not going your way because of what you've done. They're just responding to what you've done. Okay.
Totally.
You're the one that put yourself in this position. And so don't go home and cry about this and that. No, no, no. And boy, I had to stop and kind of talk to myself a lot of times about, well, you dummy, you know, this, you wouldn't have to worry about any of this had you not made a choice at the
Sure.
time to do, you know, to act irresponsibly on the internet. So that
Absolutely.
was always a good, I still do that. I still do that. There are very few restrictions now, but I still do that. For a lot of other, you know, for a lot of other reasons. So you can use that in a relationship, you can use that in a friendship, you can use that in a work setting type of thing. You know, if the boss is the boss and you are the mid-level worker, yeah, he's going to probably have you do things or say some things to you that you don't like. But remember, that happens because of who you are and what your role or status
Sure.
is in that company, you
Question.
know, and you
So,
have to, I tell you, one of the great things that I've ever been told that was so valuable to me. I use it today. I'll use it the rest of my life. But I learned this in the program because I used to say, you don't understand. You don't understand. And if you remember, you know, any of your background, they really didn't take into account. It was pretty much black and white. You're a citizen. You did this. It was against the law. And now you're here. I mean, that black and white. So no faith was accounted for. No background was accounted for. The things that I had gone through was never part of the equation. They wouldn't allow it.
wow.
And that made me angry too. But
Sure.
why wouldn't they allow all those things?
Mm-hmm.
Those things are can serve as crutches for people.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they're true, and even though they affected the way that people act at times, they didn't want to allow any wiggle room for having an excuse or to be able to justify why you did what you did. It was
Yes.
brilliant and it's smart, but boy, it's tough when you're on the other end.
I know.
So this thing about it, when I was not able to address my children's situation and what was going on in our lives and things, there were many days where I said, okay, all right, you tell me all this, but listen, you don't understand. And others would say that. It was, you frequently heard it because everybody thought that they had things in their life that sort of, you know, maybe, you know, pushed them towards maybe doing what we did. And the greatest thing one of the greatest things I've heard was, well, I want you to reframe that. And they would tell people all the time, and they made us learn this statement: I seek to understand, not be understood. Now
Love
that's
that.
powerful.
Let me write this down because that's powerful. Wow.
That takes it from me trying to get people to understand me to them, okay, listen and understand, instead of always trying to have it go back to your side and you tell me why this or that. Man, that was powerful.
So I seek to understand, not to be understood.
Really.
Yeah. Wow. So
Yes.
a couple of questions
Yes.
now. So when you were, for example,
Uh-huh.
when you had all these rules to follow, were you able and allowed to travel, like get on a plane or no?
No. No.
Not even go
I
to
was
watch a
well,
sporting event, go to the stadium,
no.
nothing.
No. At
And
one time I was, go ahead.
no. So that was the first part of the question. The second part of the question was, Was there a time limit? Like these were good for say 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and after that, if you show that you behave properly, then we can release those, make them a little bit more lax? Was there some kind of, did they tell you about that, or was it like basically, and
Yeah.
these rules were for 5 years, and after 5 years, we'll see how you perform at that time,
Right.
and we'll reevaluate.
Yeah. So it was the first 3 years I was back. I was under what they call supervised release.
Mm.
I'd done my time, but I was back in my community. That's why I had a PO. So I was still under their, I kind of feel like I'm always under their watch, a cloud, I used to call it. But so for 3 years, I was in supervised release, and I had a lot of things I had to do. I had to account for where I went, what I did. Like I said, fill out paperwork for going to my kids' games, all of that. After those 3 years, I was removed from supervised release. Okay. The only thing that then existed was what's called a registry. And so on our county's registry, they had all the offenders listed that were in our county. And so I was on the registry.
Wow.
My address, where I lived, my picture, the whole thing, right? For the safety of the community in whole.
Did they
right?
advertise that to the community?
And so no, didn't advertise it, but people know it's there. People know it's there. Like sometimes when people move, they check it so that they wonder, they'll ask a realtor even, hey, are there any people that we need to be aware about in this neighborhood, let's say, that are on some kind of registry or have committed some kind of crime. So that's a safety deal. And then after those 7 years had elapsed, and now it's a total of 10 years, then I was removed from the Iowa registry, the Iowa State registry. And then pretty much I was able to travel and do those things. At one time, I couldn't leave my county. And then after 3 years, I was able to leave my county, but they requested that I pretty much stay in state. Now I could go out of state, but boy, it required so much paperwork.
If there was a wedding, God
and I
forbid,
did a little bit.
say if there was a wedding, God forbid, a funeral in another part of the country, you were not able to attend.
Yeah, for a while.
For 3 years,
For
you
a
said the
while.
first 3 years.
Yeah, for 3 years, and then it got better. And then it got better after that, and then it got even better after my 10 years.
Did they take your passport so you don't leave the country or anything like that, or they didn't touch that?
No.
Okay.
No. I wasn't going anywhere. I had a lot of mending to do.
Sure. So now, at what stage are you now? Are you back to pretty much normal life, or you're still on some kind of watch list, or you have to report to some kind of authorities, or you're pretty much done with that now?
I don't have to report to anyone. I've been told though there's some type of federal registry that I don't know. I don't it doesn't affect me in any way, but there's something that exists that I think is probably just maybe a resource for a list of all offenders in the country or something. I don't really know. Nobody ever mentioned it to me. I just learned about it. So no, I mean, I'm, I feel free. I've got my freedom. Freedom is not external; it's internal.
Absolutely.
There were times I love the regimentation of prison. I loved it because I'm that way. It's how I think. It's how I like to work. It's how I like to. So I liked that, and actually, I thought I was going to stay really disciplined when I got home, but it went away slowly, to where you go back to your kind of old ways. Not that I'm gonna.
Maybe in a past life you were an army man and a military man in a past life, because you talk about this discipline, this structure.
In some ways, yeah. In some ways, everything was very time oriented. My clock was always 10 minutes ahead, always.
Wow, that's a good one.
So you could be late and still be early, I used to say.
That's a
and
good tip. Yeah.
and you know, I've had several players come back to me, and because I used to call it RB time, my
Yeah.
initials, and I've had several players come back and say, "Hey, coach, I'm still on RB time," and they'd show me their watch, and sure enough, they're 10 minutes ahead.
That's wonderful.
Because I used
Wow.
to tell them, you've got to do this. You can't be one of these guys that's going to your first job interview after you get out of college, and you know, and you show up in the secretary's office 4 minutes late. You can't do it. You know, why
Yeah,
would you do
absolutely.
that? Of course, they didn't as an athlete because they're afraid, you know, they'd have to run, or you know, there'd be punishment, or they whatever. But yeah, it was kind of, I always got a personal kick out of that when I'd see one of my guys coming back with their watch turned ahead.
It's
That was
so good. I
pretty
just
cool.
wrote this down. We're gonna apply this at my life as well. Absolutely phenomenal. Love that. So now, tell us. So now you're back in free. You're back outside. How did your family, your kids, relatives, and friends reacted to you upon seeing you back free? Because we had this conversation. I mean, at least
Kids,
we talked a little bit about that last time. You said that you did not consider leaving your town, but you stayed where you were. It was a family
yes,
decision. So
yes.
I know this was a tough decision. So talk to us a little bit about that decision process and how your family and your closest friends and all that reacted to seeing you back.
The decision was based on why would we let people outside of our family dictate where we lived?
Mhm.
Didn't make any sense to me. And hey, I'll take any scrutiny publicly from anybody. All right. If you know who you truly are, you know, those things should not bother you. That's really on their plate, not mine.
One question, sorry to just
Now I had to learn.
hold that thought
Yeah.
for a moment. Another question that came is, before releasing
Yeah.
you, did the people at the in the prison system sit down with you and tell you, so what is your plan now? Do you want to go back to where you were living before? Do you intend on going another part of the country to start fresh? Did you have that conversation with them?
Way more than a conversation. They had an actual document, um, the relapse prevention plan, and it was very thorough. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what time are you going to wake up? What's the
Wow.
first thing you're going to do? Yes, I mean, almost like to the minute, because you got to understand, um, if you've been away and in that environment, you have to really start thinking ahead about how life's going to be when you get back. Also, there's a lot of people in there that had never had a plan. Like, I'm going to get up and that's about it. Okay. Well, idle time is not good. Okay. When you have time on your hands, and I mean, that is a golden rule for doing things that we shouldn't be doing. You know, I mean, if I'm at home and I've got idle time, or I don't want to start this project and I'm bored, I may run upstairs, turn the TV on. You know how that goes. That turns into 2.5 hours.
All afternoon,
Now,
all evening. Yeah.
for yeah, and so no idle time, and they wanted to make sure that everybody had a plan. And you people that you checked in with, accountability partners, what type of television you were going to watch, where you were going to go, who you were going to spend time with. I mean, very extensive. And how many of those guys use that? I have no idea. I think it's probably a pretty small percentage, though.
Sure.
And I used parts of mine. I didn't use it all. I mean, some things really didn't apply, but in terms of my family, you know, your kids, and they had visited, so they had seen me. My wife was unbelievable as far as getting to see me and bringing the kids twice to see me. And kids are so awesome. I mean, I swear they really don't conceptualize time. To them, dad just left, and look, it's like I went to the store and came back.
Yeah. Beautiful.
You know, it
For them, you
really
still
was,
for
man.
them, you
It
still the same
really
man.
was.
You're the father. You know, nothing changes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
They see you as that. They don't see
No,
you as, because
not to a
everybody
kid.
makes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How old were your kids when you were
That was
back, when you were released?
They were 5 and 10.
Oh, okay. So a bit young to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, that part was awesome. With my life or my wife, it was a little bit more difficult because, she's the one that really suffered and had to live with the embarrassment of
Absolutely.
what I had done. It had been so public and so much
Yeah.
in the news and whatnot. And then yet she had to stay in the community and walk down the street and have people that probably wanted to say things to her that didn't say things, either good or bad. I
The
mean,
looks can really be hurtful too. The
that's
looks,
part of the cost.
the smiles, and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine how
Yeah.
bad that could be.
And
Wow.
so,
Mm-hmm.
and so repairing a marriage through all that
Yeah.
is a real task. It's not easy
The one
at
question I
all.
have, one question that just came to mind is when you or someone is in jail and they have a family to take care of, does the government, at least in the US, provide you some kind of financial support to help take care of your family? That's all on you.
It's all on you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy. Wow. All right.
So, to lose an income
Sure.
is tough on a family,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, there were so many things. Part of in our treatment, they asked you just about everything you could ever think about, and one of them was, what is the cost? What are the costs? And they said, no, not the cost to you, of course, me, right? I'm thinking about me. The cost to other people. What have you caused? I mean, that type of thinking was really impressed upon us, because that's a big part of being able to walk out of there and live and act and choose appropriately. And you start writing those lists down, and they become miles long. And sometimes it digs you in a hole a little bit. I mean, it gets you really down, and you're like, I can't believe I did all that to all these people. But it's good, because you need to realize that it isn't about you, and it's about, the hurt and the pain that other people have afflicted upon them because of what I've done. I mean, all those exercises were done for that reason, and that's wise.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of getting back on your feet once you're released, in terms of getting a job, were they helping you with some kind of arrangements with certain industries, certain types of companies to take, especially inmates, or it was basically on your own, bro? It's up to you now.
Yeah, you're on your own, and what they would do is like workforce development in our state is a place you can go, and anybody can go, and they have all the available jobs. They have people that are specialists that will help you with writing resumes, how to do interviews, those types of things. So they would recommend, hey, you can access those people. But in terms of a job, you were on your own. And I'll tell you, it came down to this, Payman, that I decided to work for myself because it was really too big of a hassle to try to, I mean, eventually, okay, my past is going to come up. I mean, I'm not going to interview with somebody without covering all bases.
Sure.
I'm not made that way.
So, for
And
example,
plus,
just time out. So, for example,
yeah,
if you were, for example, if someone is just off prison and they're looking for a job, how do they have to disclose their past to any employer? The employers automatically receive an update every month from every person that's being released from the prison system. So how does that work?
well, here's how it works. On the application for the job,
Oh yeah,
there's a question about, are you a convicted, or are you a convicted felon? It basically says. And that's a yes or no question. Okay. And I don't care what they say. If you put yes, they're not hiring you.
sure.
They'll tell you that it doesn't work that way, but it works that way. But you have to, because you got to be honest. You can't say,
Sure.
you can't lie. And So that was difficult. So I got to the point where I decided not to even try working for anybody that I didn't know, because I'd have to explain all of these things and they'd feel like they're compromising their all kinds of
So you
things
didn't go
to
to
eat.
any interviews from the get-go. You said, I'm going to work on my own, build my own business straight
Well,
up.
not quite. I decided I wasn't going to try to convince someone to hire me. I went to people who I knew, and I knew a ton of people in town.
Sure.
And one guy had a car dealership, and one guy had a gas station and a deli, and one guy had actually a company where on videotape they had a sports instruction. It was called Championship Productions. I got to work for them. So I got to work for people I knew. But after a while, I had this thing burning in me. And I'll tell you what it was. It was that I had the knowledge, because I was a high school JV basketball coach when I started coaching in high school. And for me to be able to become an assistant Division I coach, a head Division I coach, and darn near play in the Final Four and maybe win the national title from that JV position, I thought, what if I just replicated for other young coaches what I did to make my leap into college coaching, which is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. And my program right now is in a little bit of a wait and hold status. But for 10 years, I ran a very active, very vibrant community of coaches and taught them out of a series of 6 main topics. The most important by far being their philosophy first, and then building a network. And when I taught them how to come in and into alliance and become allies with other coaches, how to meet coaches that are above you, how to meet people who know people, and we went through the whole web of, we're 1 degree related, 2 degrees related, 3 degrees related, draw it all out and talk to them about the strategy. Just like, people talk about, well, I'm going to meet somebody and I'm going to build a relationship with them. What is that really? Okay. What are the steps? How do you build a relationship? It's easy to say, hey, most of them thought, what's networking? They say, well, you just got to get your name out there. Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, that's their answer. That's what they didn't know until I taught them. And everything I do is in sequential order. It's in order on purpose. And I taught them. And I'm really, really proud to say that there's not a situation in the 10, 11 years that I ran this every day. There's not a situation where someone locked into what I was teaching and committed to it and didn't get a job. It was only those who didn't have the belief, who didn't lock into what I was saying, who wouldn't do the things that I said you needed to do in networking, that fell off to the side. So I've got 130 young coaches who have become college coaches in the United States at all levels through our program. And the credit goes to them. They've done a fantastic job. And I'm really thrilled that 8 of those 130, then when they got into the college game, met people. They've risen into the NBA because of their skills to network.
You have anyone that's really coaching in NBA right now?
In the NBA right now?
Yeah, or working as an assistant or anyone?
Oh yeah, there's several from the front office to on floor positions. Yes. Our former student manager at Iowa State University is now the assistant general manager of the Chicago Bulls.
Oh, beautiful.
Now, I'll take secondary credit on that one. Tim Floyd actually kind of took him from Iowa State to the Bulls. But Brian Hagan, does a phenomenal job for the Bulls. And he learned a lot about networking, and he did exactly what he needed to do. But those are the success stories that you just can't get enough of. And it's just proof that when we tell young people to dream, don't dream about the impossible, because I don't think there is an impossible. Not until somebody tells you there is, or says you can't do this. I just assumed.
Get Muggsy Bugs.
Yeah.
Guy is tiny. He's like what, 5? He's not even 6 foot. Now he's one of the all-time greatest. Point guards in NBA.
Yeah. It's a great example. I would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how strongly do you believe that you can become a college coach? It's a great question, because most of them had a pretty low number. They just expected me to wave the magic wand and get them a job. And I go, no, you don't understand. You've got to do the work.
Now it's your turn
with my guidance.
And now it's your time to turn the table on them and say, no, you don't understand now,
Yeah, Good one. I like that.
A couple of questions that came to mind, Coach, just backtracking a little bit. So when you did your coaching these young and up-and-coming coaches, did they know, or did you tell them about your past in prison, or if not, or if yes, did you use any of the lessons you learned through that to convey and share those to your students, to your coaches?
Sure. Absolutely. It was important that they knew. And I always felt like there were a couple of exceptions, but I always felt like, and this is in general, Payman, I believe that if we're authentic and we're transparent and we use the language of responsibility, even though we have fallen, we've made poor choices and fallen, if you are really forthright with someone and honest, I think people respect that.
Totally.
Okay. But if you just say, hey, I got screwed by the feds, I wasn't doing anything, and they came and grabbed me and I had to, right? I mean, that kind of attitude, that kind of language.
Sure.
And so I've always tried to be really transparent. And I've had guys, not literally, but, just kind of spit in your face and say, man, I don't want anything to do with somebody like you. I mean,
that's their loss. That's fine.
That's happened a lot. And that's fine, because I'm not going to dictate how they feel about me.
Totally.
But for the most part, people, are really understanding. They really are. Don't condone anything I've done, but they just appreciate people being honest and forthright. And that's not just with my coaches, like you asked. That's with everybody in this world. Okay. I had a conversation this morning with someone, and I said, they're like, why would you want, of all the things you could speak about, why would you want to speak about your past and give a gift to somebody to maybe change their life? And I said, well, I think anybody that is going to talk about and represent themselves with the good only and hide the stuff that's shameful, embarrassing, and the poor choices is really counterfeit. I mean, we are the culmination of everything we've done since we were born, right? All the good, all the bad, all of this, all of that. We're that person. If somebody ever asks you, who are you? Pretty tough question to answer, isn't it?
Okay.
Well, and you asked me, and I know that's a hard question to answer, but in that answer has to be, well, let me tell you about my life and tell you about some of the highs and some of the lows. Okay. Now, you might not like some of the lows, or you're going to like the highs, but you may not like some other stuff you're going to hear. But it was me. It was a person, me. It was me. It looked like me. The good guy and the guy making poor choices.
We all have that.
So,
nobody's perfect. We all make bad choices. We all have background baggages, and it's up to us to learn from them. Just like I said in the beginning, we go through our own fair share of obstacles, dark times, to overcome them, to become the greatest person we were meant to be, and then that becomes our story, and those become our gift to share with the world. And that's one of the main purposes, reasons we are here, to share those lessons with the world. So, wow.
That's why, I mean, you and I have that philosophy, but there are a lot of people that don't. And that's
okay.
It's okay, but I'm sad about that because
Sure.
think of the people they'll never affect positively
You
by
know,
sharing a story.
we all are on our own journey. Some of us, just like in anything in life, some of us were gonna get there earlier, some of them a little bit later, just like in school,
Yeah.
in sports, and business and life. So one thing I learned is that never to push or chase after someone. I just put my information out there. When they're ready, I'll welcome them with open arms. Because if you try to push someone or try to change their opinion or whatever, push your vision of them, that's the
Right.
fastest way for you to lose them. And that's okay. So
Yeah.
let them be. Work. We want to work, and that's one thing that in business that they tell you and they try to drill in your head is that identify your ideal client so that you work only with your ideal clients. The person that doesn't resonate with your message, that's okay. They're doing you a favor because you're not going to waste each other's time.
Right. Right.
So I don't see that. Yeah, at least in my opinion, if someone doesn't resonate with my message, I'm not going to judge, and I'm going to say thank you. But we're not a good fit for now. So if in the future you change something or I change something, then we can see at that time. But for now, it's best for us not to do business. And I've done that to people, and people have done
Sure.
that to me as well. And I used to take that the wrong way because of that thing called ego. But now, I just, what? I look at this from a higher perspective. We're not meant to. We're not vibe. We're not on the same frequency.
Right. Yes. I like to say it's turning a mess into a message and a message
I love
into a
that.
miracle.
Wait. Let me write this down. I love this.
Turn a mess into a message and a message into a miracle.
Love that. Beautiful. Thank you, Coach. All right. So now, life is a circle, is a cycle. So do you see yourself in the near future returning back into the game of basketball yourself as a coach, or even maybe through your connection, getting back into, who knows, some kind of position in the NBA or some kind of maybe summer camp or training camp for the kids or for the coaches or any way, shape, or form? Because I can feel it.
Oh,
For you, basketball is your life. Is probably just like for
yeah.
me, football, soccer is my only true eternal
Right.
love for the rest of my life. And I can feel the same thing for you towards basketball. That's in your blood. That's at least in this lifetime. So do you see yourself going back into what you love more than anything in this life, the game of
I'm
basketball?
not going to coach. Yeah, I'm not going to coach again. But here's what I discovered, and this is really cool, that I have found things that are attached to basketball that mean just as much to me, if not more, than being out there and coaching and trying to win those games. One of them is working with young basketball players. Those that, I swear their ears are this big. They want to learn and they love the game. We're missing a love for the game, and that hurts me. I go to high school games and I don't see kids just absolutely having a ball playing basketball.
It's all about the social media and trying to get a contract and all that. That's all after.
Their motivation is different. But young kids, no, it's about playing. They're out there launching threes, which I do not like. But hey, if they're having fun, come on. This is a game that is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It's got the individual element and it's got the team element. So that really picked me up. That lifted me up. What I didn't want to do, Payman, is to become that disgruntled guy who had the game taken from him.
Yes.
Which would never be the case that I could speak of. But I didn't want to be that guy. But I still wanted to be attached to the game. And so working at the youth level, we have a facility in my hometown where I go out and volunteer and work a lot, not only with the players, but I work a lot with the coaches too, who are coaching these youth teams. And that's enjoyable. I love that. Another thing I do is I work with coaches, college coaches who I know personally, and I watch their games as much as I possibly can, and then we have conversations. And I don't do it to say, "Oh, you should have done this at this time. You should have done that." It's just a voice. It's a place. It's a person they can talk to and usually vent some frustration because I'm not on their staff. I'm a friend. I've known them forever. And they can talk to me differently and share some things and some frustrations and some victories and whatnot. And I do that a lot. And I have, there's probably a dozen guys that I do that with, that are real close friends of mine that I like to stay in touch with. That keeps me close to the game, but not too close. I don't want to be too close because then I'll become embittered about not being able to be there and do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are a lot of, I work with our coaches association in our state and our membership of a lot of coaches. I've run clinics. I've written hundreds of articles. I've had websites. A lot, and it's all about giving back to me. I was that 8-year-old kid that was at that high school practice that day when that ball was bouncing. It sounded like thunder. And those players seemed 14 feet tall. And that coach, well, I thought was like, he could be, in charge of the whole country. I mean, he was just that domineering and in control and had that deeper voice. And that day, that's in indelible ink. That day left a mark on me. And I love that game so much that you and I were talking about the NBA before we got on air, and a lot of things that go on at that level I just shake my head at because they're not part of the integrity of the game. They're tearing down the integrity of the game. And so anytime I can make a difference with a youngster who can't make a free throw, or anything, a coach, I have such a heart for coaches. I can't not talk to a coach after a game if I don't do anything other than, especially the losing coach, if I don't do anything other than introduce myself, if I don't know them and say, hey, I was really pulling for your guys, you got it close, and man, just want to encourage you I've coached for a long time. I just want to encourage you to stay the course. Don't
Give him
change
some
things.
tips.
Stay with what you know, stay with the fundamentals of what you know, and it'll pay off. And I just have a heart for him. I would not be able to have accomplished what I did in my life, which I never dreamt I really could, had it not been for people who were there for me. So I'm just trying to return the favor. And you understand, you're a coach. You know what how tough that is to lose. And it's great when one of your buddies calls and says, hey, I can't reverse the score, but I can just tell you to hang in there, man. Keep your chin up. You'll be fine.
Absolutely.
Those are good calls, aren't they?
Absolutely. Wow. That's powerful. Absolutely. Because, you can, what was the expression? You can take the game out of the kid, but you can take the kid out of the game, but never the game out of the kid. Something along those lines,
Yes.
It stays with you all your life. Yeah, absolutely.
It does. Yeah.
Wow. Powerful.
Does.
Powerful. Wow.
And I'm at a point now where I've really come to the point, Payman, where I've looked at my life and I've determined that I can give back and I can offer a gift to other people, particularly other men, who are maybe involved in things in their life that they shouldn't be because they're running from something. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, the one who chases never tires. So when you're running from something in your life, you've got somebody chasing you and they never get tired. Eventually, what's going to happen? You're going to run out of steam, aren't you? But the one chasing you isn't. And then he's going to catch up to you. And that's when people hit bottom. You can't run forever. There's no way. It's not possible.
Work harder than your competition.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not always the most talented that wins. It's the one that wants it the most that wins.
Yep. That executes the most.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So my mission now is not to win games, but it's to hopefully help men win back their lives.
Tell us more about that. Is that now your new project, your new business? Tell us more the details on that.
I've really transitioned over to speaking. I'm not fully engaged in terms of being on stages yet because I'm doing a lot of training. I'm doing a lot of preparation, all the things that go into having a speaking business, because it's a really time consuming kind of a
Sure.
full-time thing. And but that's what I really want to do. Along with that, I've written one book, my book that was released in 2018, Rebound Forward. Rebound from life's most excruciating pain and stay in the game is the subtitle. And
Is that available
I'm
on
really
Amazon?
proud. It's on Amazon. I'm really,
Right.
really proud of that book. Really proud of it.
Let me
And so,
see.
so my speaking along with my writing and my books, and then I'm working myself into a coaching business too. Imagine that, me being a coach, the word that I couldn't say for a while, right? But I'm going to
Mhm.
coach men one-on-one, small groups, those that heard my message and feel like there is definitely something that they resonated with what I spoke about. I'm going to create my own coaching business and be able to work with those men, and I'm excited about that. So it's kind of a three-part business that I'm very, very close to hitting the ground running full speed. I'm really excited about it. And so, as I talked about before, giving back to those young coaches, because I had that expertise and experience, I'm now taking my life experiences and things that have happened, and really using that to fuel other men, to give back to them. And
Love that.
there's no greater calling for me right now. I mean, I honestly cannot live with the thought that I'm going to leave this earth with all of this stuff packed up in a nice box and put away, when I could have helped people, in some cases, save men from keeping their family, save men from keeping their job, save them from suicide, possibly. Teach them about making wise decisions instead of poor decisions. It's endless. And I feel that's my calling, Payman.
Absolutely.
Just like yours is very well defined, and we do our best work when our purpose is defined.
Totally. One of the major lessons I learned is that this life, at least life, from my understanding, is like a school to try to learn lessons. And I see it more like, even like, because I love eating like a buffet, for us to try a little bit of every dish, every experience, about
Yes.
accumulating as many experiences as possible. And you, Randy, you've been absolutely blessed to have a very rich, very varied life, because you've got to experience a lot of things, the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. And these are beautiful, not only lessons and stories, but beautiful gift, just like you said. And now you have a responsibility, a duty, even a moral responsibility towards mankind, to share those toward other people. Because if you were just to keep and learn further from them and just improve your life, that would be a good step. But you would be wasting like 95% of the true gift in that.
Yeah.
But now that you have that, you have to share it in whatever way you feel more comfortable with. It's books, articles, website, podcasts, videos, whatever. Find your way,
Yes.
find your voice to really
Right.
get your message out there, because this is what life's all about. So I'm super happy
It
about
is.
that. I'm super delighted and honored and blessed that we connected. You're the first
Yes.
person that we have added tripeat. So, back to back to back, just like the
Well,
Bulls,
bless
just
you,
like
man.
all
I
that.
just enjoyed every second of it.
Absolutely. So tell us, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
The best way to connect with me is to go to, my website is RB Speaks, my initials, RB, and then speaks.com.
Okay.
The best email address would be, and this is going to sound redundant, but rb@rbspeaks.com.
Okay.
And I'm on social media. I'm on all the social media outlets. I'm out there and I'm active, and I'm easy to find. And I encourage people to reach out. And there is amazing power in a one-on-one confidential conversation. And I really encourage, I've talked to a lot of people over the phone that I didn't know, that would email me and say, hey, I've got this situation with that I know is going on with my husband, or I've got this, My kid's not playing enough. What do? I get that one too, believe me. But I get a lot of serious questions, and I'll answer them just like I've known them for 30 years. And sometimes I then follow that up with a phone call and really talk to them from a heart to heart level. And, I think people in general, Payman, I think when people like you and I say, hey, we'll help you in any way. Here's my email. Here's my website. Here's how to contact me. I think they think that we just say that because we're supposed to. And I want people to contact me because they're calling because they're hurting, they're broken, and they want to get healed. I might not be the one to heal them, but I'll be the one to speak with them and at least try to give them a little guidance. And it might be the first step to them reclaiming their life. So, I would encourage people when people reach out and offer to have you call them or email them or contact them in any way, do it. That's why we're in the work that we're in, right? I mean, to take those kind of calls. I mean, it's an honor to me to take those calls.
Absolutely.
So I would really encourage people, not just with me. I mean, I would love to hear from a bunch of your listeners, but certainly, but everybody, reach out. I mean, life's not meant to be lived alone.
Absolutely. Do you have a team around you to help you with some of those calls, or other professionals that can help? Or is it just you for now?
I have professionals in really most of the mental health, all the mental health areas, in health and safety areas. Yeah, I could pretty much refer to just about anyone. Yeah.
So the question now that I have is, so you're trying to help, you're helping men. Any men in general, are these men that are just left the prison system trying to get back on the feet, or men in general? Or do you have what's your ideal client avatar?
Right. Right now, my target is men in corporate business. Okay. Those that are in, a somewhat stressful environment. What I did was with my coach, and I actually have two coaches. So coaches have coaches.
Sure.
And thank goodness they're wonderful and they do great work. But so they asked me, what's your profile? And I wrote it down, I was accomplished driven, worked in a stressful profession. Winning was the important, keep from losing, the whole thing. And they said, if you would mirror that back to society, who would you mentor? And I said, it sounds to me like corporate America, the competition and the stress and a lot of things that go with it. So that's going to be a blast. I'm really looking forward to that. And that's going to happen real soon. The other group, Payman, I'm going to make my number one best attempt to speak to college athletes, college teams, along with their coaching staffs, because so much of what I talk about are things that young athletes, we're talking about collegiate student athletes, haven't faced yet. When you're 20, you haven't faced a lot. Maybe your grandmother, grandfather has died, maybe. Possibly a friend, or someone in your family, a cancer situation, possibly. But there are so many obstacles in front of them. And I want to let them know that there's a formula that they can use. There is a way to handle adversity and come out and rebound forward. There's a way to handle adversity and become bitter for all kinds of reasons about life has thrown them a curve. And
especially for students, guys that are about to get, whether it's college basketball, even if they're skilled and all that, NBA, the two biggest things they have to be careful about is, one, leeches, and two, gold diggers.
Boy, you got that right.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of leeches that's going to try to leech on you and try to be your best friend and all that. They're your friend as long as money is coming, but the moment the money stops, they're out. And that's why 95% of professional athletes, after 5 years of retirement, they go broke. And that's something that they need to teach them. And I think the NFL and the NBA are starting now to have like mandatory classes
Yeah,
for
they
new
are.
guys that get in to teach them about being smart with their money from the get-go.
Yep.
And if that you can implement something like this in your program, even if they don't end up in NBA, even if they end up just college or even
Oh,
go
yeah.
achieve, even for life, this can help you tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know that money is just like, so those kids don't have that money. That's like me telling a young college athlete, you haven't experienced adversity yet. It's down the road. And the same as someone who goes to the NBA right out of college, right? All of a sudden they've never had that kind of money. Now they have that kind of money. And you're either going to make good decisions or poor decisions with that. And unfortunately, a lot of times they're not wise decisions. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that's my mission. I'm excited about it. I really am. And you're going to turn me into a podcaster. That's what I
Hallelujah.
hear.
Amen.
That's in the wind. And so I'm going to add that to my speaking,
Well,
my
I think for
writing,
you,
and my coaching.
the podcast will be the fastest way. It's going to be almost like the shortcut, because there's so much value, so many contacts that you can bring in. You can do a podcast just on helping men in corporate America. One on if you want to
Yeah,
pursue your basketball, even get back to the coaches, people you helped, and help
right.
those. Or even I told you last times, the reading your diaries, for example. That
Yes,
could be a podcast just by itself. And even when I
yes,
told you, I suggested you modestly, hey, reach back to that. What was it, Dr. Fraser? Reach
yes,
out to her,
yes,
at least at the very least, thanking her for turning your life around. And then
right.
if she's open to it, maybe there's a lot of potential for tremendous collaboration between the two of you
Yes,
to come, 1 + 1 at math is 2, but in that case it would be 11, because,
right.
plus your connections, her connection, they can really take this to the
Yeah,
stratosphere, because you're a prime example. You're the poster child of the guy that turned his life and now has become a model citizen, and that's what they want. And they want to display that, to advertise that, to show that they would really embrace you as the poster child.
well,
Seriously.
I'm just doing, I'm really doing what my folks taught me when I grew up.
Yeah, that's what life's all
You
about.
know, that's my foundation.
Mhm.
And I got away from that foundation, and then I mean it certainly, was damaging, but
Sure.
the person I want to be is the one that they taught me to be,
So
and they
one
gave me a great
question,
foundation.
another question. So that lady, Dr. Fraser, in that room told you not to use the word coach anymore, but now in your business and your coaching, how do you introduce yourself? How do the students introduce? They call you Randy, Mr. Brown, or Coach Randy, or Coach. How do they call you? Is it Coach?
It kind of depends who it is and what the relationship is.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I kind of tell, I tell kids, Coach Brown, or Coach Brown is usually what I go by. But I'm still into that kids don't use adults' formal names and things. That's just how I was raised. I
Yeah.
know they say that's stupid and old fashioned, but
Hey,
I don't know, that's just the way I was raised. But there's no greater feeling really than being called coach. It's really
absolutely.
special. I had, and because you're in the same boat with me. There aren't, I don't know if there's other professions where people address them as what they do. I
There's a
had this
few.
conversation the other day. People don't say, "Hey, accountant," or now people may say, "Hey, doc." Okay, that would be one exception, maybe.
My father was an
But
engineer, and at least in our culture, people refer to him Mr. Engineer, for example, always. And
no,
there's other,
yeah,
in some countries, like for example, even if you're a governor once or whatever in a small local town, they keep calling you governor, whatever, for life. Or
yeah,
teacher,
right,
for example, I was in China when I was coaching and teaching there. People
right,
refer to me as teacher, coach, even years after.
right.
So in some countries,
It's
yes, maybe
special.
not. And absolutely, I love that. I love that because it
Yes,
brings a special communion, special bond between you and your students
yes,
for
yes.
life. Yeah, wow. So how do you feel now? Because did at any time when Dr. Fraser told you not to use the word coach, but you couldn't because deep down it was part of your identity. So how long did it take you? Sorry, let me rephrase that. So now when you hear that word coach, how does that what is your does that trigger you, or does that make you
No.
feel happy and proud that hey,
No.
I'm
Makes me happy and proud. Yeah, I look at it like this, Payman. She made her point.
absolutely. Oh yes,
She made her
a
point
powerful one at that. Yes,
that
absolutely.
day, and in that atmosphere and in that world within a world. That name was gone, and it had to be, and it was so good for me. It was therapeutic for me not to use that word.
Totally.
It was unbelievably good for me. But I got out, and I went to that treatment meeting for 3 hours every Saturday for 3 years. I don't know if I used the word that whole time. I mean, I was just I didn't want to go back to that. But then, in time, you just it's who I was a coach. It's not the fact that I was never a coach, but I understood her point. Her point was so well taken.
Absolutely.
I mean, it destroyed me, and for a period
To
of time,
rebuild you, yes, to
physically
rebuild you,
and
yeah.
emotionally, it absolutely destroyed me.
Sure.
That's how powerful.
Because it's your
saying you couldn't
identity.
use this word. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
So when you were back from prison at home at the time, the first few years, did you follow the NBA or college basketball? You completely disconnected yourself from anything to do with basketball.
I slowly got back into it,
Okay.
but I didn't
Yeah, of
dive
course.
back in. Yeah. Because I wasn't, I didn't see any games for 2 years.
Really? Wow. Did they tell you in the prison system not to watch any basketball, or that it was just
No,
up to you?
but TV wasn't available that much, and if it was, they voted on what they were watching.
No, I mean, once you left, before you left, did they tell you or advise you not to watch the NBA or college basketball even on TV, or that was your decision?
No, that was my decision. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Listen, Randy, we're coming to the end of Q4 of game 3. Let's see.
Yes.
We definitely have to go all the way till game 7. So in a few weeks, in a few months, once you've started your podcast, you've especially once you've connected with Dr. Fraser, that's going to be game 4.
That's game 4. Okay.
Yes,
All
game
right.
4. So
Good.
so
That's
let
good
me know,
incentive
keep
for
me
me to-
posted.
I
Absolutely.
will.
And my ultimate dream would be to have both you and Dr. Fraser on a call together. That's going to be game 5 or maybe even game 7. So we'll see. We'll take it one game at a time. We're just starting playoff right now. We're the playoff season almost,
Oh,
We're
I
getting
love
there
it.
down the stretch. So
I love it.
it's a money time. It's the RB time. I'm going to implement
Yep.
that in my life. The RB time.
10 minutes ahead. Yeah,
I-
you got to make sure, do it on your watch. You can't do it on your phone because
Yeah, I don't have a watch, but when I get a watch,
Yeah.
I'll put it. Yeah.
And do it in your car.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, Randy, I love talking to you. We can talk for hours and hours. You're a very fascinating, captivating story, an incredible gift of storytelling. And again, you're one of the most blessed human beings because you went through a lot of crap, and those crap have made you such a powerful man. You're now in charge of such a powerful story and gift and lessons to share. You have a very big responsibility right now towards
Thanks for
the
saying
entire
that.
human race to share that message in whatever way, shape, or form that feels the most natural to you.
Yes.
So get your word out. Do what you gotta do. Keep trucking. Keep slamming it. It's gonna be a slam dunk, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And keep raining those threes. Even they're thinking of putting like an extra line for Steph Curry, like a 4, like if it's outside of certain lines, it'll be 4 points. You know what I mean? They might even put it past the halfway line for him, even at 5 point. He's gonna put it with the eyes closed. This guy is out of this world.
Pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, keep shining your light, keep blessing the world with your presence, with your message. And so listen, I've had amazing people. You're the first as a tripeat. And it's for a reason, because your story is that powerful. And I mean it. If it wasn't powerful, at the end of episode 1, I would have been, see you, have a nice life. But no, and this is, we're only getting warmed up. This is preseason, if you know what I mean.
I'm honored to hear you say that. I really am.
Very welcome.
You're a guy
Pleasure's
with a
all mine.
huge heart, and you're
Thank
doing
you.
unbelievable work with your podcast, and you just
Thank you. This is what the
you're
podcast is about, giving a platform to
Yes.
beautiful people with beautiful messages to express and share and allow them to spread their message. And you're one of the most
Exactly.
powerful messages I've heard. So yeah, and I will connect you with a lady I got connected with last night. She works with helping men and people that just left the prison system to get back on their
Oh,
feet. I will
excellent.
connect you with her. She's
Yes,
wonderful.
excellent.
I'll connect you after the call. So listen, Randy,
Okay.
Coach Brown, keep stay awesome, stay safe. God bless you, my friend, and keep in mind we have a game 4 to play. Let me know when.
Game 4.
Let me know the time, the date, and we'll make it happen. And the venue, we'll make it happen.
I'm going to get on it. I'm going to get
All
on
right,
it as
brother.
soon as we're done.
Stay safe, stay
Thank
awesome.
you so much, Payman.
Very
So
welcome.
much. It's been an
Pleasure.
absolute pleasure. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye bye.